guys, and welcome to Game Time. My name is JJ, and today I'm going to do my part 3 of my collection here, and I'm going to do a very quick little one about my video game magazines and stuff that I have from back in the day, and I'm going to compare them to what the video game magazines are now, you know what I mean? I don't buy a lot of new video game magazines now because the content just isn't as good as what the original content of is from, say, something from the 90s or something from even earlier than that. I just don't find the newer video game magazines interesting enough for me to go spend $10 on them now to learn about the same stuff that every other video game magazine covers. You know what I mean? You buy a video game magazine now and you've got 10 pages of Call of Duty stuff in there that you already freaking know about anyways if you play Call of Duty. You know what I mean? So why spend the money? But back then, content used to be so much better. It used to be worth the $6.50 because look at the size of the magazines you used to get back then. Now, like they're peanuts now compared to them, and the content inside was so much better. They actually took the time to give you a lot more original stuff, and you know what? The games back then, to me, were a lot better. You know what I mean? They had made you use your imagination. Like, I was playing Vector Man the other day. I love playing Vector Man. And there's so many good old magazines, like the old Game Pros are really, really cool. Even the original PSM magazines. This is like just between the transition of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. You just had the first Devil May Cry come out and stuff. It's really, really neat. You know, Turok, you know, when you're for the N64 and stuff. And Game Pro was really good because you used to get Role Players Realm in there, and you used to get awesome strategies and stuff of great RPGs like Brave Fencer Musashi, Tales of Destiny, even nice ads for, you know, Xenogears and stuff. It's really, really cool stuff. Also, if you had subscriptions back in the day, you'd end up with cool, like, Nintendo brand strategy guides, and you'd end up with, you know, cool Nintendo tidbits, or, you know, there was also all kinds of, you know, articles and stuff like that were interesting to read because there was a time during the PS2 where there was a few games that came out that had nudity in them, like Leisure Suit Larry or the Playboy Mansion game, or in this case BMXXX, where you actually get to unlock the topless women and stuff like that. I unfortunately don't have that game here in my collection, but I did like the article, and it explains all kinds of stuff, and it even gives you the names of a lot of other games that have nudity in them for, say, the Atari or, you know, the 3DO and stuff like that. So it's a really, really cool article to read, you know, and I enjoy reading the older articles way better than I enjoy reading the newer articles in the newer video game magazines. It's full of history, and it's full of all kinds of tidbits and stuff that you wouldn't even know about. And I bet you some of you guys weren't even born for some of these magazines, you know what I mean? So, and, you know, like, there's all kinds of cool stuff. You get cool strategy guides and stuff like that in them. You don't get as many good ones these days in video game magazines, you know, like you'd be surprised, but this was 10 years ago, you believe it or not. You know, they don't make EGM magazine anymore. I was sad to see them quit publishing paper magazines, and they're only online now, but I was a big EGM fan. Their stuff always came with some cool demo discs, just like the old PlayStation magazines. So, and they actually showcased all kinds of cool stuff on these, like Red vs. Blue, Mega 64. There's all kinds of very popular YouTube shows that were on these discs before, you know, Xbox Live was really big and had YouTube or anything like that. Like Rooster Teeth and stuff like that had videos on here, you know, cool special edition Red vs. Blues and stuff like that, and I still have them all. They were very excellent discs, you know what I mean? They gave me a reason to go out and spend that $10 on that video game magazine. But now you're lucky to even get a poster or something in there, you know what I mean? And it shares all the same stuff that you would get everywhere else. These ones, Game Pro had a lot more, you know, different content than an EGM had. You know, EGM was very unbiased. They covered everything. But then when you wanted something very specific and say, I want my Role Players Realm of the month, you had to go get Game Pro. But now everything's all about previews and what's coming next, not what, you know, you're playing right now. And if you miss out on something today, you can just look it up. Back then, if you missed out on that issue of Nintendo Power, or you missed out on that issue of Game Pro, part 1 of Final Fantasy VI or something like that, and you only ended up with part 2, tough shit. You know what I mean? Because that's all you got. There's no way to get it back unless you actually did a back order. And how many of you actually went through the Nintendo Power or the GamePro back order log and actually order specific magazines? I know I never did. I got what I got and that's it. But there's a lot of cool stuff that you would find in older video game magazines that are full of history, full of stuff that you can sit down and just read about all classic video games, like Pokemon Gold and Silver. This is in year 2000, believe it or not. This is 13 years ago. It's full of awesome video game stuff. So next time you see a big stack of old video game magazines or something like that chilling out somewhere at 10 cents a piece or something like that, pick it up, because it might have the 100% completion to Kingdom Hearts in there, the first printing in an old PSN magazine for 25 cents, and you'd get a lot more enjoyment out of it than actually looking online for all the information that's included in one of these magazines. So out of the hundreds of magazines I have a few that I've read dozens and dozens of times. I usually stick to the old ones. I love looking at old video game magazines and picking out the games that I used to play. Like, do you remember Joe and Mac? Do you remember Super Seed? Do you remember Contra? Do you remember Little Nemo? Do you remember, Excitebike? Do you remember all these old classic games that you flip through pages and it's nothing but nostalgia and memories? And I link my video games to where I was when I first played those video games and who I was around, who did I borrow those games from, and everything like that. It reminds me of a lot of little pieces of my childhood that are involved around video games, you know what I mean? I can tell you where I got these video games and where I got, who I borrowed it from. If I borrowed Mega Man 2 because I couldn't find it, I must have borrowed it 100 times off this same kid. I remember where I was when I beat that first Mega Man 2. Guaranteed. You know what I mean? So if you see any old video game magazine, Nintendo Powers and stuff like that, grab them, man. They're very interesting. You would enjoy them. Your kids would enjoy them. There's so many cool comics in there and stuff like that. Metroid comics, Zelda comics, Mega Man comics. You know what I mean? There's Nestor the Unlikely, Lester the Unlikely. There's all kinds of stuff in these magazines that you don't get really that much anymore. And really, who goes online and actually looks all this stuff up? If you had it in front of your face, you can say, hey, I'm going to go read about, I don't know, Dino Crisis 2. You know what I mean? Let's see what was going on in August of 2000. Wild Arms was coming out. Marvel vs. Capcom Strategy Guide Part 1. This is a good issue. You know what I mean? I'd read through this whole thing in like half an hour, and I'd fill my head full of good information that you wouldn't get today unless you really looked. So if you see some old video game magazines, pick them up, because you're missing out on all kinds of good video game history, trivia, strategy guides, trading cards, all kinds of cool stuff that are included in this. You know what I mean? There's nothing like having, that original Super Metroid strategy guide that came out by Nintendo because you were a subscriber or something like that. It's cool stuff to have, and I say it's good for any video gamer's collection. So check it out, pick them up, and I'll talk to you later on the next episode of Game Time. Peace.